Hey there, if you are listening or watching this video, I just want you to know that you are an awesome human being. What's up, everyone? My name is Devin, and I am your host of the Weekly Word. This video is your personal invitation to join me every Wednesday to hear from other healthcare professionals all over the world. We'll be discussing healthcare hot topics, education, resources, advice, and honestly, just great conversation learning about people's journeys into their professions. I cannot wait to see you guys there. As always, stay tuned and stay safe. This week's special guest is Danielle. She's an ultrasound tech from Canada with a specialty in OB. We've got some great topics to discuss, so let's jump right in. This is the Weekly Word. I've got Danielle here. She's an ultrasound tech, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear from her. So let's just lickety split jump into you because I want to hear everything that you have to say. Can you start off by introducing yourself, what you do, where you're from?
Sure. So my name's Danielle. I work as a registered diagnostic medical sonographer. That's like the long technical name. So an ultrasound tech for everyone on the street lingo. I'm Canadian. I'm Canadian, born and raised in Calgary, Alberta. So that's where I went to school and that's where I started my career. After I graduated, I worked at a clinic that did both general ultrasounds. So that's lots of like abdominal scans, thyroids, things like that. But then they also did obstetrics. So I started off doing, so I did everything. So I started off doing general and low risk OB. And then while I was working, I ended up getting like on the job training in the high risk obstetrics. So MFM or maternal fetal medicine. So did that.
Wow. Do you have, like, out of all the things that you've done, what is your favorite thing? I don't want to say to ultrasound because that doesn't even sound right, but I guess image. What's your favorite thing to do imaging on?
Like the types of exams?
Yeah, the type.
I think it really just sort of depends on the day and the mood. I really like obstetrics, and that's what I do exclusively now. After I was working in Calgary, I ended up getting recruited to go down to the Bay Area to work at a hospital there at a perinatal diagnostic center. So all we did was high risk OB scan. So I'm partial to that. I really enjoy that. But it's quite engaging, like it's mentally challenging. And then on top of that, you're trying to build up a relationship with the mom that you're scanning as well and make it entertaining for them versus somebody coming in for their abdominal ultrasounds. Like they're not really expecting a big show and tell with that. So there's days where you're just a little bit not feeling, super on, or you're a little bit tired. So sometimes it's nice to just go in and do an abdominal ultrasound and you can just focus on what you're doing and not have to worry about anything else. But for the most part, I really enjoy OB. Yeah,
I could see that. I've never been pregnant, no kids over here, but I could imagine just like, sitting there, or I try to imagine just like sitting there and you're pregnant and someone's just, running that probe across your belly and you're just like, do. So
no one wants the silent ultrasound tech. That's it's like not what they're expecting. It makes them nervous. Like
exactly, because it's like, is the baby in there? Like, is everything in there that you're supposed?
Can you tell me what you're seeing?
Yes. So what got you interested in this particular field?
It took me a while to get here. I think coming out of high school, I had zero idea what I wanted to do. You write those like the career quizzes and you go through them and it'll give you like ridiculous answers. It'll be like bricklayer and then it'll be
astronaut.
Like, okay. It's not the most practical, but I knew that I really enjoyed biology and I really liked helping people. And so that kind of helped narrow it down to something within the healthcare world. But then again, with healthcare, there's so many different things that you can do. And I feel like doctor and nurse seem to be like the big ones that come up. Like ultrasound tech was not on my radar at all. And nursing was not something that I was particularly interested in. Like that, my hat goes off to all of you nurses. That is a tough job. Like, oh my gosh, I know quite a few nurses, and just the amount of compassion and empathy that you have to have for your patients and the things that you see, especially you working in oncology, that must be really difficult. You end up bonding with people. They're going through the most difficult time of their life.
Yeah, it can get hard sometimes, but when you find kind of what it is that you want to do, I don't want to say that it comes easy, but it's almost like second nature, that I don't really have to like think about it too much. But you did make a comment that I really love, that you said that you were talking about, like, there's so many different things to do in healthcare, but a lot of people just kind of attribute healthcare, they think of like doctors or nurses. And so this, having you here, and just, the other people that have shared their stories and like what they do, that is one of the main reasons why I wanted to do that, is because, for people that are coming out of high school, or maybe it's not their first career, or they're in search for what they want to do, there are so many different things out there in healthcare that maybe people just like aren't aware of. And so I want to spread that awareness, because I get in my own little bubble. I work with, people that are ultrasound techs and, respiratory therapists, things like that, but I don't know all of what you guys do. And I'm sure that there are so many other people out here that don't either. And so I want to highlight you and what you do. And so again, just thank you for being here. So yeah, we're going to dig into that. But yes, being a nurse is challenging, but I think every role in healthcare has challenges.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, I could imagine. So I'm going to actually skip down a couple of questions then, since we're talking about challenges. And what would you say, the biggest challenge in your profession?
Yeah, I think a huge one that jumps out is just how difficult it is on our bodies. There's a lot of repetitive strain injuries. I know a lot of people that have started off in this career, and then they either drop down because they're hours, so they start working like part-time or something, or they'll take like a day off in the middle of the week, either because they're trying to avoid getting an injury or because they already have an injury. So yeah, there's a lot of like bursitis, carpal tunnel. One of my friends that I went to school with had carpal tunnel. She developed it in her dominant hand, so her scanning wrist. So then she taught herself to scan with her left hand, and then ended up getting it in her left hand. So yeah. So anyway, we go into this job knowing that that's going to be a part of it. In school, they really try and teach us proper ergonomics. So you try to be diligent, but sometimes the day is just super busy, or sometimes you end up with a patient that isn't as mobile. And so it's just, when you're like rushing against the clock, and sometimes it's just easier for you to be like, okay, well, ideally I would like to have you roll up, but you can't do that for whatever reason. So it's just easier for me to come to you and lean over and get in this position to take this. It'll only be a few seconds. I'll get the picture and be done and move on. But when you're doing that, day in and day out, it kind of starts to creep up on you.
I never really thought about that at all, about those specific type of injuries, but it totally makes sense, especially since you're using pretty much, I guess, just your dominant hand most of the time to get in those positions to like, move it around, hold it steady.
It's a lot of like tiny little movements. And I think people too, they think we just put the camera down and like, that's it. You've got a good picture of whatever it is that you're looking at in that spot. And this was something that I didn't realize until I started going to school, was that sometimes you really need to push to see what you want to see. Like the closer you are to the structure, the clearer the picture is. And so if you're trying to get a structure that's deep or posterior in the body, you'll have to put sometimes quite a bit of pressure, or you're trying to push like bowel out of the way, because there's air in the bowel that reflects the sound back to us. We end up getting like a really cloudy looking picture. So if you can kind of dig in there, it really clears things up a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've like sprained my wrist at work before.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And then like, did you just teach yourself to use your non-dominant hand, or what do you do?
It went through like occupational health. So it was like
I see.
this whole process. And so I'm like in rehab at the moment. But
oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And
that's okay. Thank you.
It's crazy. Like I said, I just never even thought about it. Like, and this is why, building more appreciation for things that other people do as well, because I never sat there and thought like, yeah, you're using the same hand, and you're doing those repetitive movements, like fine motor skill movements, you're applying pressure. And sometimes like you're in doing an exam for however many 10 minutes plus, maybe, plus or minus, and then multiple times a day, every day.
Yeah.
That could be very strenuous. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I'm definitely going to highlight that too. I had no idea with the injuries. On a different note, so but is this the first thing that you wanted to do, or so what else, I guess, did you want to do before your role that you're in now?
Yeah. So going back to what we were talking about before with coming out of high school, and it's so much pressure. You're like, 17, 18 years old, trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. And you haven't like fully come into your own yet. So I ended up just like taking a stab in the dark, basically. Like I had, some family friends that I babysat for, and they were all dentists. They were like just this one big family of dentists. And so they said dental hygiene would be great. They're like, you go into school, it's a quick, like you're in, you're out. Well, you have a job working here. This is what we'll start you at. And so it just seemed like the path of least resistance. And so I enrolled in university to do the prerequisites, started off in Bachelor of Science. And as I was sort of working my way through the courses, I was like, am I really all that passionate about teeth? Like, not really. Like, I don't know that I would have chosen this on my own if somebody didn't like suggest it. And so then I ended up going through like this whole process of just taking courses that interested me, seeing if I could kind of land on something, and ended up landing on speech pathology. That really fascinated me. So I started doing psychology and linguistics, because those were the predominant prerequisites to get into a speech pathology program, which is a master's program. And so it's quite competitive to get into. So while I was working towards it, I thought I better have a backup in case this doesn't pan out. And the guy that I was dating at the time, his mom worked in diagnostic imaging. And so she was the one that introduced me to ultrasound, said, I think you might be interested in this. And so I set up a job shadow at the hospital, and luckily it was a positive experience. And so then I started to pursue ultrasound.
Wow. And how many years has it been now?
Oh gosh, I did, coming out of high school, 5 years of post-secondary education before I finally landed on ultrasound. Ultrasound was a 26-month program. And then I graduated in December of 2015 and started my job in 2016.
Awesome. So that kind of leads into the next question about like the educational preparation. So you mentioned it was 26 months, but it was post-secondary. So if you could just kind of like walk me through, if you want to be, an ultrasound technician from start to finish, from school to working, what does that look like?
So if somebody wanted to, they could go into the program straight out of high school. Yeah, there were a couple girls in my class that were quite young. Like they didn't do any university or anything. They just went high school, like right into ultrasound. You do, for prerequisites, you just need to have your sciences from high school. So you need all three of them. I did not have all three of them. I had biology and chemistry, but I stayed far away from physics because that was not my strong point. So I had to enroll in a summer class for
yeah.
I enrolled in a summer class for that, and luckily I did well enough that I was able to to the program. And then sometimes what people will do is once they find out that they're accepted, they will enroll into like medical terminology or just an anatomy and physiology introduction class, which we do in the ultrasound program within like the first semester. But if you do it beforehand, it just lightens your course load a little bit.
I see.
And then, the program that I did was accelerated. At that point, I had already done 5 years of university. I didn't want to start doing like another 4-year program or anything. So we went like, it was a whirlwind. We went straight through. I think I had like 2 weeks off one of the summers, but other than that, it was like a mix of in classroom lectures, so like a didactic theory portion, and then they'd alternate, and then they'd send you out to practicum. So then you do that, and then the next semester you'd come back to class, and so it alternated.
Wow. 26 months. That is fast. And so at the end, is it a degree? Is it a certificate, or is it a certificate?
It's a diploma, I believe.
A diploma?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So 26 months, you did a diploma, and you can go straight out of high school. And that's that thing, that people might not know, especially like what you mentioned, you're in high school, 17, 18, just thinking back, like, I couldn't even tell you what I was thinking of or what I was not thinking of. And knowing that you don't have to go, to even like a 2 or like a 4-year, university or a community, college to get an associate's or a bachelor's degree, that you can go straight into if you know that that's what you have an interest in. I mean, that would save time, resources. Yeah. Especially if you know, like, that's what you want to do. That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, they do, I believe, have degree programs as well. So like 4-year programs. So that's an option too, if somebody knows that they want to do this, but they like the idea of having a degree under their belt. But you can do either way.
I guess, in your opinion, what would be a benefit, or I guess maybe the opposite, kind of like a turn away versus a diploma or the degree?
For me, I have not run into any situations where I was like, oh, I wish I had my degree in ultrasound. It doesn't limit what jobs you can apply for. One doesn't look better than the other on a resume. You're making exactly the same as you would if you had a degree versus if you have the diploma. The only thing would be maybe if you wanted to move up into management at some point, a degree might help you out there. Or if you wanted to pivot and do a career switch. And there are just some places where when you apply for them, they want to know that you have a bachelor's degree or a degree in something. So that could be beneficial.
I see. Now, I appreciate that, the honesty. And again, that's something that I had no idea that there was, like you said, the same pay. It doesn't limit you from jobs. So, to one person that's like, do I want to take out student loans? Do I want to, spend money to go to a 4-year university, or, spend less money, getting the diploma only to wind up at the same place afterward, and I can start working faster? That sounds like that's what I would do if that was me. So that's awesome that there's those options versus, there's quite a few tracks where you can't avoid going to a 4-year university.
Right.
So that's awesome. I'm definitely going to highlight that too, because that's so helpful. So helpful. What would you say is your most favorite thing about what you do?
Oh gosh, there's so many aspects of my job that I love.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really nice balance to my days. I have part of my days where I get to interact with people, either whoever it is that I'm scanning, the mom and their family. I'm interacting with the doctors that I work with. I get to visit coworkers. And then there's also times where I get to just step back and like have a moment to myself while I'm doing up the report. So I'll go in, I'll do the ultrasound, I'll step out, I'll look over the images, make sure I have everything, make sure I'm happy with everything. I'll put my report together, and then I'll go and like present my case to either the radiologist if I'm doing general, or a perinatologist if I'm doing obstetrics. So that's really nice. It's also just a really engaging job. Like you're just busy and like all the time. I'm sure it's the same with nursing. Like there's not really gaps in your day where you're sitting around like looking at the clock. I'm sure we've all had jobs where, you know, in high school or working your way through university or whatever, where you're doing reception work or what office work or filing or whatever it is, and you're just sitting like counting the minutes like until it's over. Like that, I've never had a day like that in ultrasound. It's like very fast paced, and as soon as you go in to do the scan, you're focused on the scan, you're not focused on the clock. Like, so that's nice. The days fly by.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
How many cases would you say that you have average like per day? If
God.
you're like 100.
Yeah. Oh my arm would fall off. 100. Oh man. It varies depending on where you work. Like if you're in a clinic, for example, it can be quite fast paced. I would say doing just 14 scans in a day in like an 8-hour shift. MFM, those high risk obstetrics, the cases are a little bit more complex and a little bit more time consuming. And then you'll also have sometimes like twins or triplets. So those are going to take obviously longer than what it would for a singleton for one baby. So anywhere from like 8 to 12 cases.
And then how long, you mentioned like for MFM, how long is there like an average time that you would say that the exam takes?
Yeah, I would say they're anywhere from half an hour. That's like the shortest break that we have. Yeah, up to like 45 minutes was the maximum time that we got at one of the places that I worked. At another place that I worked, they gave us an hour. If you're doing twins, you could have like an hour and a half or 2 hours to get through something.
Wow. So I could definitely see if that's, you know, what your caseload looks like. There's no downtime at all. If they're just, you know, back to back, as soon as you're done, you know, you put your report together, and you're right back to the next one. Wow.
Yeah. When mom goes to the washroom to empty her bladder, that's when we're like chugging coffees in our room.
Do you guys get at least 30-minute lunch breaks?
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some places that I've worked, we've had an hour lunch break. Really nice.
That must be nice. Completely. For someone that's interested in getting into your field, what would you say is like a key piece of advice or like a key takeaway?
I would suggest even job shadowing maybe a few people, just because you don't want your experience to be tainted by that one particular ultrasound tech that you're job shadowing. Maybe they're having an off day. Maybe they're in pain from one of their many injuries. Maybe they've been doing it for 20 years and they're just burnt out. So it's nice to kind of get a few different people's perspectives and then kind of step back and make sure that's something that you want to do.
I see. So you're talking about job shadowing, like even before you get into the education program, like before you even do any of that.
Yeah. See if it's something that you want to do. And when you go to apply for the program as well, at least the process that I went through, it was like you wrote a little summary about what you thought was involved in the career. They like asked you questions about things. And then you went and had an interview. And so if you've job shadowed, it shows them that you're serious, you've done some career research, and then it'll give you a leg up when it comes to answering some of those questions that they have.
That's good. I think that's important. That's important to know, because there's, like, for example, like if you're on track to become a nurse, like if you don't have like healthcare experience, like maybe like a CNA or a PCT, or something, it's really hard to shadow necessarily unless you are like in like a residency program or like a student program.
Okay.
So that's good to know that is an option, to be able to do that, and that it also would give you an advantage in an interview. So that's also really good information to know.
Yeah. I believe this was like so many years ago now, but I think there was like HIPAA compliant paperwork that you sign or something. And
right.
So that's how they're sort of able to like top shadow of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what would you say right now is a current healthcare issue? And and what can we do to solve it, begin working on it?
Yeah. Just from personal experience, I would say sometimes egos can get in the way. And that goes for both ultrasound techs or doctors. Sometimes you run into situations where people don't want to admit that they made a mistake, or they don't want to step on somebody else's toes because they don't want to hurt their ego. And I think what we need to do is just take a step back and realize that your own feelings are not what's important in the grand scheme of things. It's the health of the patient. And so you need to make sure that that's the common focus.
I definitely agree. That's like soapbox moment. It's everywhere. It really is. And having that ego, like what you said, about, needing to be able to admit when you make a mistake, at the end of the day, especially that mistake, that leads into patient safety, that leads into, patient care. And that's what we all show up for, I hope. That's what we're here for. That's who we're doing exams on. That's who we're treating. And so having that integrity, that, that, and putting the ego at the door, it is a hard thing to do. And it's very much everywhere. And it makes it also sometimes hard to work, with other people. Makes for a very long day.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure we all have that one person where you see their name on the schedule and you think, oh, okay, this is going to be a 2 coffee day.
Oh, you already have it planned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like 8 o'clock coffee and 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
No, seriously. And maybe even a third at 4.
Yeah, that's right.
It just depends. At 5. Exactly. As soon as we clock out, we're straight to
the bar. But yeah, like nobody wants to work with somebody that's not approachable. Like that doesn't do anyone any favors. If you have questions and you're intimidated or scared to ask, then you're not going to learn anything. And then it doesn't help the patient. It doesn't help the doctor either, because you want to make sure that you're giving them exactly what it is that they need in order to make the proper diagnosis. So.
Exactly. Before I move on to the next question, which is you talking about your platform, I actually wanted to highlight some things that I really enjoy about your platform on Instagram. And I also read in your responses that you do have a TikTok. So I definitely want to make sure that you get to share that as well. I found your page. It was before I started following you, one of your videos came up. You were educating about, ultrasounds on, OB ultrasounds. And I was just like, her voice is just so calming. Like you have my attention. Like I am listening. I really love the way that you explain your information, and it's so easy to follow. And I felt, even though I'm in the medical field, if I wasn't, it's not so heavy on medical jargon where it's like, especially even though I am in the healthcare field, ultrasound is not my ministry.
It's completely different.
And especially OB is definitely not. Not, OB is awesome. That is not my interest. But even still, your videos, are so engaging, and the information is just so easy to absorb and digest that it makes it even more interesting, and you just want to keep coming back. And so for you guys out there, if you are not already, please follow her on Instagram. It's Danielle Marie 678 on Instagram. We will also be tagging her in this post. But if you're interested in ultrasonography, OB ultrasonography, or if you just want some good information to be able to learn and engage with, please follow her page now, please. So moving on to you, anything else that you want to share with the audience, business platforms, anything? You have the floor.
All right. I would say if somebody's interested in more OB resources, or if someone's pregnant specifically, there's a TikTok account that I follow. It's here, I wrote it down. Let me see. Babies After 35 is her Instagram, I believe. Her name's Dr. Shannon Clark. And I remember what her TikTok is. It's TikTok Baby Doc.
That's cute. TikTok baby doc. I'm writing that down. Okay. We'll tag.
Yeah, she's got some fantastic information about OB on her account. If somebody's interested in getting into ultrasound, there's a fun TikTok account called Da Superstat Sonotech. So DA, and then Super Stat, STAT, Sono, SONO, Tech, TECH.
Okay.
She's got some fun content on there. She does a good job at like mixing in some humor.
Yes. Okay. And we will definitely tag her.
Yeah, you can get to her. She has an Instagram account as well that you can access through her TikTok page. Yes. And then Natalie Avni is another fun one.
Natalie, how do you spell? You said Avni?
Avni, AVNI.
AVNI.
And she's got a fun account. It's ultrasound content, but it's geared towards both somebody who works in the industry and also if you don't. She's just got some good stuff there as well.
Really good. We'll make sure to include those resources too. And I love that you have them, on the ready too, that, in addition to you as a resource, that you also have other people and other accounts that people can follow. So we'll definitely make sure to include it in the post when this airs.
Great.
I also wanted you to talk about some career advice. I did read over your response about, you did mention earlier, even about just like having a, work-life balance. If you wanted to elaborate a little bit more on just your response about the career advice with the massages and the yoga and all of that. Yeah.
If you can start getting into a routine of doing yoga, stretching daily, doing some strength training, especially with like your shoulders. Our shoulders just take a beating. So if you can be like lifting weight, find a YouTube video. There's lots of like physiotherapists, chiropractors, or whatever. You can type in like posture exercises or shoulder strengthening exercises, and get some really good free resources there. And start doing it like daily, ideally, if you can, and so don't wait until you get an injury like I did. Do it before and try and prevent the injury. We talked about how there's a lot of MSK, repetitive strain injuries in this field, but there's also a lot of people that do a good job at maintaining posture and ergonomics and stay on top of keeping their body in shape. And I know people too that have been doing this their whole career, and they're in their like late 50s, early 60s now, and they haven't had any injuries.
Wow.
Yeah. And they chalk it up to yoga.
Yoga it is.
Yeah. So get a yoga subscription.
Yes.
Go to a studio. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And do it early, preventatively, and to maintain shape, and not wait until, hopefully never, but not wait until if an injury occurs. And then, yes, that makes so much sense. Makes so much sense. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. I don't know if you got a chance to read, there was the last question that was talking about the patient experience exercise. I know I haven't sent you your free item yet. Let me know whenever, you've made your selection. There's absolutely no rush. We're at all, no pressure. But ultimately the patient experience exercise is for you to just wear your item at work, just one time, one day, no time constraints, and just let me know if anything, how did you feel? Did your patients, did your coworkers, did anybody comment on the item that you were wearing? I purposefully, make my items super bright, vibrant, wild, however you want to describe it, to hopefully brighten up your day, brighten up somebody else's day. And that's a lot of the feedback that I do get, just because, throughout the day with everything that's going on, we could use a little bit of extra positivity, and ultimately though, I have so much joy making the items. And I hope that when you receive them and you wear them, that you have even one more ounce of joy than you had before. And so that's really just my goal. And so whenever you do receive it, just give me feedback, constructive criticism. That's how, improvements happen. So just let me know.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course. Do you have anything else that you would like to add before we wrap things up for today?
No, I think we touched on a lot.
I think so too. I really, really appreciate you meeting with me. I definitely learned a lot, and I know that everybody that's watching this is going to learn a lot as well. You're so resourceful. You are so well spoken. And again, I just appreciate you sharing your story and sharing all of your resources with me and the audience that's watching this.
Oh, thank you so much.
And thank you again for taking the time out too. In the middle of your day. And I also hope that you get well soon and that you feel better.
Thank you so much.
And drink that coffee, because I'm gonna go get
right after this. Yeah.
Yes. I just I didn't think about stopping at Starbucks. I was gonna have like this mug, but then I'm like, what if it's big? What if I just spill it and it's just like,
oh.
It didn't have the cute little, the Starbucks cups have the holes, or, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to spill it and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even just nice to hold, just to have a warm.
Wow. Well, thank you again so much for sharing this with me. If there's anything else that you need from me, just let me know. Whenever you've made your selection on the item that you'd like, you can shoot me an email. You can send me a DM. Just let me know, and then I'll get it sent out to you within like a week or two after you make your selection.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yes. Well, if there's nothing else, I will let you go. Enjoy your coffee and the rest of your day. And I hope we'll be in touch.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yes. Thank you so much, Danielle.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed and maybe even learned something new. Whether this is your first time here or you're a regular, thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you soon. Do you or someone you know want to join the Weekly Word? Send your requests and nominations to info@elaynachanice.com. You can also shop for your new favorite scrub caps and medical accessories on Etsy by searching for us, Elayna Chanice. And finally, if you have not already, hit that like and subscribe button and follow us on all major social media platforms at Elayna Chanice. As always, stay tuned and stay safe. See you next week.